The night was cold and filled with rain as Captain Ethan Cole walked through the neon-lit alleys of the alien trade port on the planet Varlis 7. The city smelled of metal, oil, and fear. Markets stayed open even in the storm. But these were not ordinary markets, they were slave markets. Ethan had seen many horrors during his time as a human officer working among alien worlds. But every time he passed through this place, something in him twisted. He came here tonight not as a soldier, but as a man who couldn't sleep. Haunted by the faces of those he couldn't save during the last border war, he walked quietly, blending with the crowd of alien buyers. Tall reptilian merchants shouted prices. Small insectoid creatures huddled in cages, their eyes glowing with silent tears. Then he saw her. A small alien girl, maybe 13, with pale silver skin and deep blue eyes, stood barefoot in a steel cage. Chains hung from her wrists. The sign above her read, "Half-price damaged merchandise." She didn't move when the traders yelled. Her face was blank, but her eyes, they were alive. They searched the crowd like she was still hoping for something. Someone. Ethan stopped walking. For a moment, the noise around him disappeared. "Hey, human," a rough voice called. "You looking to buy?" Ethan turned. The slaver was huge, covered in thick armor plates and carrying a shock whip. "She's broken," the slaver said, grinning. "Not worth much. But for a few credits, you can take her off my hands." Ethan's jaw tightened. "How old is she?" "Doesn't matter," the alien barked. "She's just a servant breed, barely sentient." Ethan's blood boiled. Barely sentient? She looked terrified, intelligent, and too young to understand the cruelty of this world. He didn't argue. He just reached into his coat, pulled out a few credits, and tossed them at the slaver. The alien laughed as he opened the cage. "You humans are strange," he said, "always buying trouble." Ethan knelt down in front of the girl. She didn't move. "You're safe now," he said softly. "No one's going to hurt you." She looked up at him uncertain. Why you buy me?" she asked in a shaky voice. Her words were broken but understandable. Ethan smiled faintly. "Because nobody should live in chains." The girl stared for a long moment, then slowly reached out. Her small hand touched his glove, trembling. It was the first time she had touched someone without fear. He led her away from the market. The rain poured harder now, washing away the smell of smoke and oil. He gave her his jacket, though it barely fit her small frame. They walked toward the shipyard where his old cargo ship, the Resolute, waited. Inside, she sat by the heater, eyes wide at every light and sound. Ethan handed her a warm drink. "What's your name?" She hesitated. "They call me Karen," she whispered. "Well, Karen," Ethan said, "you can stay here until we find somewhere safe." Her eyes widened again. "Safe?" She repeated the word like it was something she had never heard before. That night, she couldn't sleep. She watched him quietly as he repaired the ship's engine. At one point, she walked over, tugging his sleeve. "You, not like others," she said softly. Ethan smiled again, this time with sadness. "Maybe I used to be," he replied. When the storm outside turned into thunder, Karen flinched. Without a word, Ethan handed her a blanket and sat beside her until she calmed. For the first time in her life, she slept without fear. But far away in the dark alleys of Varlis 7, eyes were watching. The slavers didn't like losing their property. One of them whispered into a comm link. "The human took her. The council will not like this." By dawn, Ethan's ship was surrounded. Drones scanned the area. Slaver Guild ships hovered above the port. They wanted the girl back. Ethan didn't know it yet, but saving one girl would soon change everything. Because by saving her, he would awaken something powerful, something buried deep in the hearts of hundreds more like her. And before the next sunrise, the man who only wanted peace would be called father by an entire generation of alien children who had never known kindness before. Morning light broke over Varlis 7, painting the city in dull gray and gold, but peace did not follow. Alarms echoed through the air as slaver ships descended, their engines growling like beasts hunting prey. Ethan Cole stood near the ramp of the Resolute, his old cargo ship, staring at the sky. He knew that sound. Trouble was coming. Inside the ship, Karen was still asleep under a thick blanket. Her small frame barely moved, her breathing soft and even. For a brief moment, Ethan allowed himself to smile. But that moment vanished when his scanner beeped. Multiple heat signatures, Slaver Guild patrols closing in fast. he whispered to himself. So much for a quiet rescue. Ethan ran to the cockpit, powered up the ship's engines, and activated the stealth field. The Resolute shuddered as the old metal beast roared to life. Hold together, he muttered, patting the control panel like an old friend. Karen woke up, her eyes wide with confusion. What happening? Bad people are coming, Ethan said calmly, strapping her into a seat.
Stay here no matter what.
Understand? She nodded nervously, clutching the blanket like armor. Outside, 3 slaver craft circled the port. Their loudspeakers boomed. Human ship, you are harboring stolen property. Surrender the girl and you will be spared. Ethan smirked. Surrender? Yeah, that's not happening. He flicked a switch and the Resolute lifted off the ground with a deep rumble. The nearest slaver ship opened fire, plasma bolts lighting the sky. Ethan rolled the ship hard left, the old hull creaking in protest. Sparks flew from the ceiling as energy beams sliced through the rain. Karen screamed, covering her ears. Hang on! Ethan shouted. He dived into a narrow canyon, the ship barely squeezing between metal towers. The slavers followed, their engines howling. Inside the cockpit, Ethan's face was focused but calm. He had seen worse in human wars. His mind worked fast, counting seconds, reading terrain, predicting enemy moves. To him, it was just another battle. But for Karen, it was everything. No one had ever fought for her before. She looked at him in awe, her fear fading slowly into something else. Trust. The slavers launched a net missile. It spread wide, glowing red. Ethan pulled the lever down, sending the Resolute spinning downward at full speed. The net passed just inches above them. Nice try, he muttered, but I've flown through asteroid storms scarier than you. The canyon ended suddenly, opening into the vast wastelands outside the city. Ethan pushed the engines harder, heading toward the horizon. His radar flashed again, 5 more ships joining the chase. Persistent bunch, he said under his breath. Karen whispered, They never stop. They always take back. Ethan looked at her reflection in the cockpit glass. Not this time. He opened the weapon bay, 2 small turrets from his old military days. Let's see if you still work. With a flick, the ship's side guns came alive, firing bright streaks of plasma. 1 slaver ship exploded in a flash, debris scattering across the desert. The others slowed for a moment. Ethan took the chance to activate the cloaking module. The ship shimmered and vanished from scanners. He cut the engines, letting the wind carry them low and quiet over the dunes. Inside, silence returned. Karen looked out the window, her eyes wide at the endless desert. You saved me again, she whispered. Ethan leaned back, exhausted. Saving people shouldn't be this hard. After some time, the ship landed in a hidden cave system. Ethan shut everything down and checked the energy core. We're safe for now, he said. But they'll keep looking. Karen followed him, still holding the blanket. She stopped near a wall filled with old drawings. Symbols and handprints burned into the stone. Ethan frowned. What is this place? Her voice trembled. Old home. Long ago, our people lived underground. Before slavers came, Ethan looked around. The drawings showed families, children, and tall figures with open hands like they were greeting someone. He turned to her. This cave? Your people built it. She nodded slowly. They say, when stars fall again, our Father will rise and take us home. Ethan froze. Father? Yes, she said softly, the one who frees the lost. He didn't know what to say. He wasn't a father, not to anyone. But when he saw the way she looked at him, with hope, with trust, he felt something change inside. Far above them, the slaver ship scanned the desert, unable to find the human or the girl. But deep below in the caves, whispers began to spread among the hidden tunnels, alien voices passing a message through old radio lines. A human has freed one of us. By nightfall, the message would travel far beyond Varlis 7. Across the stars, enslaved colonies would hear of a human who fought for a child that wasn't his. And before the next dawn, hundreds would start calling him by a new name, the Father of the Lost. Deep inside the cave, the air felt heavy, filled with the scent of dust and old memories. Ethan Cole sat near a small campfire, repairing a broken plasma coil from the Resolute. The orange glow flickered across the stone walls, dancing over ancient symbols. The silence was almost peaceful. Almost Karen sat beside him, watching the flames with wide eyes. The light reflected on her silver skin, making her look ethereal, almost glowing. For the first time since he had rescued her, she seemed calm. Ethan handed her a metal cup filled with warm synth tea. "Drink," he said softly. "It'll help you stay warm." She nodded. "You always help," he smiled faintly. "That's what humans do. We fix things even when they're broken." But before she could reply, a faint sound echoed from the tunnel, like metal scraping stone. Ethan froze. He reached for his blaster and motioned for Karen to stay quiet. The sound grew louder. Footsteps. Slow, cautious. Then from the shadows a small figure appeared, trembling. Eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Another child. Then another. And another. Within minutes, a dozen alien children stepped into the light, each thin, scared, and carrying marks of chains on their wrists. They looked at Ethan with awe, fear, and something deeper, hope. Karen gasped. "They found us," she whispered. Ethan lowered his blaster. "You know them?" She nodded quickly. "They like me. They escaped too. They heard about you." Ethan frowned. "Heard what exactly?" The smallest alien, a boy with gray scales, stepped forward. His voice shook. "You are the one who took the chain breaker. You are the father." Ethan blinked, confused. "Father?" The boy nodded. "You saved Karen." The message spread. "Slavers fear you now. They say a human came from the stars to take their slaves away." Ethan sighed, rubbing his forehead. "Great. I saved one kid and now I'm a legend." But Karen smiled softly. "Legends make hope." The children moved closer, forming a circle around the fire. Some carried broken scraps of metal. Others held small handmade tools. They had nothing, but they still came. Ethan stood up. "Listen, all of you," he said. "I'm just a man. I'm not a hero, not a savior. But if you want freedom, I'll help you get it." The group exchanged glances. One older alien girl stepped forward. "The slavers. They hunt us everywhere. We hide, we run, but we can't fight. You can." Ethan's heart sank. He looked at their faces, so young, so desperate. Could he protect them all? He didn't know. But walking away wasn't an option anymore. "All right," he said firmly. "If we're doing this, we do it smart. First we get food and power, then we find a safe way off this planet." He pulled up a hollow map from his wristband. The nearest supply depot is 20 clicks north. Old mining sector. Abandoned, maybe. That's our best shot. Karen's eyes widened. "Slavers guard that place. I've dealt with worse," Ethan said with a smirk. Before dawn, Ethan prepared the Resolute for flight. The ship's hull still bore scorch marks from the last battle, but it was ready. The children waited near the ramp, nervous and excited. As the engines hummed, Karen looked at him.
Why help so many?
"You already saved one." Ethan turned toward her, his face serious. "Because saving one isn't enough anymore." The ship lifted off silently, gliding low over the wastelands. In the distance, dark towers of the Slaver Guild glowed red against the horizon. Inside the control room, the children whispered among themselves, touching buttons, staring at stars through the viewport. For them, this was the first time they'd seen freedom, real freedom. As they reached the mining sector, Ethan landed behind a collapsed ridge. He stepped out cautiously, scanning the ruins. The ground was littered with old droids and rusted machines. Karen followed him, holding a small lantern. Suddenly, a sound came from the shadows, a mechanical whir. Ethan aimed his blaster. A tall robot stepped out, its eyes flickering blue. "Identify yourself," it said in a deep voice. Ethan lowered his weapon. "Name's Ethan Cole, just looking for supplies." The robot paused. "Human detected. You are the one they speak of. The slavers posted bounties across the sector. They call you the father of the lost." Ethan exhaled sharply. "That name again." The robot's voice lowered. "You saved them. That makes you dangerous to those who profit from pain. But there are more. Hundreds in hiding, waiting." Ethan's heart pounded. "Waiting for what?" "For you," the robot said simply. He stood there silent. The rain outside began to fall again, tapping gently against metal ruins. He looked back at Karen and the children standing behind her. Their faces glowed in the soft light, filled with belief. For the first time he understood. This wasn't just about one rescue. It was about giving an entire people something they'd lost long ago. Hope. Ethan clenched his fists. "Then we give them what they're waiting for." The robot's eyes brightened. "Then the revolution begins." The next few days passed in silence. broken only by the hum of old machinery and the distant echo of thunder outside the caves. Ethan Cole had turned the old mining tunnels into a hidden camp. The children helped however they could, fixing small machines, cleaning old parts, scavenging food from abandoned stores. They were learning to survive, but survival wasn't enough anymore. Not after what they'd seen. Not after what the slavers had done. Ethan stood near a flickering hologram of the nearby sectors. The robot guardian, who called himself Unit 9, projected maps of slaver outposts. These are the main hubs, and the robot explained. If we destroy their energy relays, communication between guild ships will fail. Karen stood beside Ethan, eyes bright with curiosity. We can do that. Ethan smiled slightly. If we're quiet and clever, yes. Humans have a saying. Never fight strength with strength. Fight it with brains. The children listened, wide-eyed. Some had never heard anyone speak of fighting back before. Most didn't even believe freedom was possible. Until now. That night, Ethan gathered them around the campfire. The flickering light painted his face with warmth and determination. You've all lost something, he said. Family, friends, home, but together we can build something new. Not as slaves, not as victims, as free people, the young ones whispered to each other. One of the older girls raised her hand. What if we fail? Ethan looked at her, his voice firm. Then we try again. Because freedom is worth the risk, Unit 9's voice interrupted. Human slaver patrol detected. 2 ground vehicles approaching. Estimated arrival 6 minutes. Ethan's calm vanished. Everyone underground now. The children rushed into the tunnels. Karen grabbed a small plasma tool, following close behind him. Ethan crouched behind a pile of metal crates, gripping his blaster tight. Outside, heavy footsteps echoed closer, mixed with mechanical whines. Through the cave entrance, 2 armored slavers entered, tall, insect-like beings with glowing eyes. One carried a scanner sweeping the walls. Energy readings here, one hissed. They must be hiding. Ethan didn't move. His breath slowed. He waited until both stepped deeper inside. Then in one swift motion he fired 2 precise shots. Blue plasma flashed. The scanner exploded. One slaver fell. The other roared, firing blindly into the dark. Karen screamed as the shot grazed her arm. Ethan leaped forward, tackling the slaver and smashing his helmet with a metal rod. Sparks burst from the alien's gear. The cave filled with smoke and silence again. Karen! Ethan rushed to her. The wound wasn't deep, but she trembled. You're okay, he said, tying a strip of cloth around her arm. You're safe, her eyes filled with tears. Why you fight for us? She whispered. You could run, leave. He looked at her seriously. Because no one fought for me when I needed it most. I won't make that mistake again. Outside, the storm raged harder. Unit 9 scanned the fallen enemies. They sent scouts. The guild will come soon with more. Ethan sighed, wiping sweat from his brow. Then we move before they find us. By dawn, the Resolute and several smaller scavenger ships were ready. Ethan divided the group. Half would fly with him. The others would follow the tunnels to an ancient transport station, miles below the desert. Their goal: reach an orbital signal tower and send a distress call to human space. Before leaving, Ethan looked over the group one last time. Dozens of alien children stood lined up, eyes full of trust. Remember, he said, you're not slaves anymore. You're survivors, fighters, family. Karen stepped forward, her voice trembling. We are your family? Ethan nodded slowly. Yeah, you are. The engines roared as the ships rose into the storm. Lightning split the sky, painting the desert in white flashes. Behind them, the caves collapsed. Ethan had set charges to cover their escape. Hours later, high above the clouds, Ethan saw the horizon blaze red. Slaver ships, dozens emerging from hyperspace. The guild wasn't hiding anymore. They wanted war. Unit 9's mechanical voice echoed through the cockpit. Multiple hostiles. Overwhelming numbers. Ethan's grip tightened on the controls. Then it's time we showed them what humans are made of. Karen stared out the viewport, her small hand gripping the seat. They will come for us all. Ethan smiled grimly. Good, let them try. The ships dove into formation. Plasma fire streaked through the sky, turning clouds into fire. In that moment, the rebellion of the lost truly began. Not with armies, not with generals, but with one human, one child, and a promise stronger than fear. The skies of Varla 7 burned. Lightning tore through the clouds as ships chased each other between flashes of white and fire. Ethan Cole gripped the controls of the Resolute, his knuckles pale against the shaking metal. Every alarm screamed in his ears, but he stayed calm. He'd flown through worse. This time, though, lives depended on him. Behind him, Karen sat strapped to the co-pilot's seat, her face pale but determined. The children in the cargo bay huddled together, whispering prayers in their native tongue. Each time the ship jolted, they cried out, but Ethan's voice brought them back.
Hold tight! We're not dying today!
Outside, the slaver fleet spread across the horizon like black wings. Dozens of ships heavily armed, faster and newer than his old cargo freighter. But Ethan had something they didn't: human stubbornness and a plan. He flicked a switch on the control panel. Unit 9 status. The robot's voice echoed through the cockpit. Energy shields at 43%. Hull integrity unstable. Enemy formation closing at 10 kilometers. Good, Ethan muttered. Let them get close. Karen looked at him in confusion. Close, that's bad. Ethan smirked. Not when you know their habits. He adjusted the targeting system and waited. On his monitor, 3 slaver ships formed a perfect V-shaped attack line. Predictable. They always underestimated humans. Unit 9, Ethan said. Activate the plasma burst on my mark. The ships drew nearer, their weapons glowing red. Karen held her breath. Mark! The Resolute suddenly dropped altitude, spinning downward through a lightning cloud. At the same time, Ethan released a plasma mine from the belly of the ship. The explosion that followed was blinding. 3 slaver craft vanished in a fireball that shook the sky. Karen screamed, both from fear and shock. You destroyed them! Ethan grinned. That's the idea. But the victory was short. A deep metallic roar filled the comms. Human vessel, this is Commander Threx of the Guild, a cold voice announced. Surrender now. The children are property of the Council. Hand them over and your death will be quick. Ethan switched the comm to broadcast. Tell your council this. Humans don't hand over family. The reply was a burst of laughter. Then the largest ship appeared, a war cruiser dark as night, dwarfing everything around it. Its cannons charged, glowing bright. Ethan knew the Resolute couldn't take a direct hit. He turned sharply toward the clouds. Unit 9, prepare the storm field. Storm field unstable, the robot warned. Do it anyway. Ethan shouted. The ship plunged into the heart of the storm. Thunder cracked. Lightning struck the hull again and again, but the storm field absorbed the energy, glowing like a burning shell around them. The massive slaver cruiser followed, but its sensors glitched. The human ship vanished from its scanners. Inside the cockpit, Karen covered her ears. We will die. Ethan shook his head. Not today, kid. He redirected the ship's power from weapons to engines and dove straight down, disappearing into the dense atmosphere. Below, lightning and clouds became a curtain, hiding them from view. The slaver fleet fired randomly into the storm, searching. When silence finally returned, the Resolute floated low over the desert. Ethan's face was pale, sweat dripping down his temple. That was too close, he whispered. Unit 9 beeped. We cannot stay hidden long. They will triangulate your plasma signature. Ethan sighed. Then we change the game. He opened a secret compartment beneath the controls. Inside lay a small device, the old human distress beacon from the Terran Navy, sealed since the border wars. He had promised never to use it again. But promises didn't matter anymore. Karen watched him carefully. What is that? Something that might bring friends, he said. If humans are still listening, he pressed the button. A soft hum filled the air as the beacon lit up, sending a coded pulse through hyperspace. Somewhere, light years away, a signal would appear. A single line of text flashing on human command screens. Civilian distress on Varlis 7. Hostile alien activity. Possible human survivor. For now, it was all they could do. That night, they landed near the old desert ruins to repair the ship. Karen helped clean the burns from the hull while the children gathered supplies. Ethan sat quietly by the fire, staring at the stars. Do you think humans will come? Karen asked softly. Ethan looked up. If they hear us. They will. She tilted her head. Why, you said humans fix things? But we are not humans, he smiled faintly. Doesn't matter what you are. Kindness isn't about species, it's about choice. She nodded slowly, trying to understand. But as the night deepened, Karen's eyes caught something far above. A faint blue flash among the stars. Then another. And another, Ethan followed her gaze, his heart racing. That's impossible. Unit 9's voice crackled through the comm. Multiple warp signatures detected. Incoming vessels, human origin, Karen gasped. They heard you? Ethan stood, the firelight reflecting in his eyes. They heard us. The storm clouds above glowed bright as human ships began to break through the atmosphere. For the first time in decades, the sky of Varlis 7 shimmered with Terran steel. And somewhere far below, the slaver commander realized too late, humanity had come for their children. The next morning, the skies of Varlis 7 looked different. For years they had glowed with the dull red of slaver engines, but now they burned bright blue, the color of human ships entering the atmosphere. The people of the planet didn't understand what they were seeing. Some hid, others prayed, and the slavers panicked. Ethan Cole stood outside the Resolute, the wind from the descending vessels whipping through his coat. He shielded his eyes, his heart pounding. He hadn't seen a Terran fleet in years, not since he left the wars behind. But there they were, sleek silver ships marked with the insignia of the Terran Union Defense Command. Beside him, Karen watched in awe. They came, she whispered, her silver skin glinting in the sunlight. They really came for us, Ethan nodded slowly. Yeah, kid. They did. One of the ships landed nearby, kicking up clouds of sand. The ramp lowered and out stepped a tall woman in a combat exosuit, Captain Mira Holt, her face sharp and voice steady. Ethan Cole, she said, removing her helmet. You're a hard man to find, Ethan smirked. Didn't think you'd come running just because I pressed an old button. She crossed her arms. Your signal went through 6 secure channels and triggered 3 emergency protocols. You really know how to get attention. Her eyes shifted to the group of alien children huddled behind Ethan. And this is what all the noise was about? Ethan's smile faded. These kids were slaves. I freed one. And found hundreds more. Mira's face softened. You always had a bad habit of making impossible promises. Karen stepped forward timidly, her blue eyes reflecting the bright sky. Are you like him? She asked softly. Are you human too? Mira knelt, her armor creaking. Yeah, little one. And we're here to help. Behind them, the horizon burned as slaver ships began to retreat, their communication networks in chaos. But not all ran. A massive cruiser appeared above the desert, its hull scarred but its cannons armed. The slavers were not done yet. Mira turned to Ethan. We have a window to get these kids off-world. My fleet can cover us for 10 minutes, no more. Ethan looked at the frightened faces around him. We'll make it count. They began loading the children onto the human transports. Karen stayed close to Ethan, refusing to leave his side. As the last group boarded, an explosion rocked the ground. The slaver cruiser had begun bombardment. Sand turned to fire. Mira shouted over the comms. We're taking heavy fire. Shields at 50%. Ethan ran toward the ship, dragging Karen behind him. A plasma blast struck the ground nearby, throwing them both to the dirt. He rolled over, pulling her close, shielding her with his own body. When the dust cleared, she looked up at him, trembling. Why, you always protect me? Because someone has to, he whispered, coughing. And I'm too stubborn to die today. Mira's voice came through the comms again. Ethan, get on board now! But before he could move, Unit 9's mechanical voice cut in from the Resolute. Warning. New signal detected. Unknown energy source beneath the desert. Ethan frowned. What now? Suddenly the ground began to vibrate. Cracks formed in the sand, glowing with blue light. Karen gasped. It's awakening. From below the dunes, a massive structure began to rise. An ancient alien temple made of crystal and steel. Symbols identical to the ones in the cave shimmered across its surface. The energy pulsed like a heartbeat. Mira stared in disbelief. What in the void is that? Karen's voice was almost a whisper. It's the home of my people, the place we were taken from. The temple towered high into the sky, emitting a low hum that resonated across the planet. Ethan could feel it through the ground like it was alive. Then as they watched, the symbols changed, forming a shape, a crest. Mira stepped closer. That's not alien. Ethan's eyes widened. The crest was human, the old Terran Union seal. He turned to Karen slowly. Karen, your people, they weren't always from here. She looked at him confused. What do you mean? He exhaled. You're part human. Silence filled the air. The storm, the ships, the gunfire all seemed to fade. Karen blinked, her lips trembling. Part human? Mira looked between them. Ethan, that's impossible. Maybe not, Ethan said, staring at the temple. Looks like our ancestors did more out here than we ever knew. Suddenly, the temple fired a beam of blue light into the sky, hitting the slaver cruiser above. The ship's shield shattered instantly, and it exploded in a burst of flames. The children cheered, the sound echoing across the desert. Karen's eyes glowed faintly as she watched the beam fade. It heard me, she whispered. It answered. Mira shook her head in disbelief. Whatever that thing is, it's tied to her somehow. Ethan looked down at Karen. Then we protect her at all costs. As the last of the slaver ships fell from the sky, the Terran fleet began evacuation. Ethan watched the temple's light fade into the horizon. The war wasn't over, but something had changed. The galaxy had just learned that the lost children of another species were not just victims. They were connected to humanity's past. And now, with the stars watching, the legend of the father of the lost spread beyond Varlis 7. The storm over Varlis 7 had ended, but the world below still trembled. Smoke curled from the shattered wrecks of slaver ships scattered across the desert, glowing faintly under the dawn light. Above them, the Terran fleet floated like silent guardians, blue light reflecting off the endless sands. Ethan Cole stood on a cliff near the newly risen temple, his coat torn, his face marked with dust and exhaustion. Yet his eyes burned with something fierce. Hope. The children were safe inside the Terran transports, and for the first time, Varlis 7 was free. But peace never came easy. Mira Holt approached, her armor scorched from battle. We've cleared the last of the slavers, she said. But Command wants answers. That temple isn't in any database, and the readings, she hesitated. They're not natural. Ethan turned to her. Because it's not just a temple. It's a memory, Mira frowned. What are you talking about? Karen stepped forward from behind Ethan. Her skin shimmered with a faint blue light now, as though something inside her had awakened. She looked scared but calm, like she already knew what was coming. When the light touched me, she said softly, I saw things, humans walking among my people, teaching us, building cities with light and sky. Then they left, and the slavers came. Mira stared. That's impossible. You're saying humans were here centuries ago? Ethan nodded slowly. Looks like it. Maybe the first explorers went farther than we thought. Maybe they created something here, and she's the key to unlocking it. Karen's gaze drifted toward the temple. It's calling again, she whispered. It wants me to come inside. Ethan's instinct screamed no, but he saw the look in her eyes. Fear mixed with destiny. Whatever waited inside was tied to her, and maybe to him too. He sighed. Then we go together. Inside, the temple pulsed with blue energy, the walls alive with shifting patterns of light. As they walked, the air grew warmer, thicker, and charged with power. Strange carvings lined the corridors, some alien, others written in the old Terran script. Karen touched the wall and the symbols glowed brighter. It remembers, she said quietly. They reached a vast chamber where a crystalline sphere hovered above a pedestal, humming with power. Ethan could feel the vibration in his chest. Suddenly the sphere flickered, projecting a holographic image, a human face, aged and solemn. To whoever finds this, the voice echoed. We came here long ago to save a dying race. We merged our DNA to preserve life. You are our legacy. Protect them as we once did. Karen's hands trembled. Legacy. Ethan stared, unable to speak. Humanity hadn't just visited this world. They had created its people. The children, the slaves, Karen herself, they were part human. Forgotten descendants of an ancient experiment to preserve life beyond Earth. Mira's voice broke the silence. Ethan, this changes everything. But before they could react, alarms blared across the chamber. Unit 9's voice crackled through the comms. Warning. Enemy reinforcements entering orbit. Hundreds of ships. They mean to destroy the planet. Ethan clenched his jaw. Of course they do. Mira looked at him. If that fleet fires, no one down here survives. What's the plan? Ethan glanced at the sphere, then at Karen. This temple has power, enough to stop them. But someone has to stay to control it manually. Karen's eyes widened. No, you can't. He knelt beside her, his voice soft but steady. Karen, you're the future. They need you. You carry both our worlds inside you. Tears filled her eyes. But I don't want to lose you. He smiled sadly. You won't. You'll carry me with you, always. Mira grabbed his arm. Ethan, there has to be another way. There isn't, he said. You know it. The temple began to shake as the enemy fleet fired its first barrage. Light streaked through the sky. Ethan stepped onto the control platform and looked back one last time. Get them out of here, he said. That's an order. Karen broke free from Mira's grip and ran to him, hugging him tightly. You gave me a voice when no one listened. You gave me life. You are my father. Ethan's voice cracked. And you, Karen, are my reason, she cried as Mira pulled her away. We'll tell them your story, Mira whispered. All of them. The doors sealed behind them. Ethan placed his hand on the sphere. It pulsed once, then roared to life. Beams of light shot upward, piercing the clouds, striking the enemy fleet. One by one, the slaver ships burst into flames. The light grew brighter, spreading across the sky like a dawn reborn. From orbit, Mira's ship escaped just in time. Karen pressed her hands against the viewport, watching the planet below shimmer in blue. Goodbye, she whispered. The explosion that followed wasn't destruction. It was transformation. The light cleansed Varlis 7, burning away the slavers' poison, turning the deserts into green. The storm clouds broke, revealing a world reborn. Weeks later, under a new sky, the children built a small settlement at the temple's edge. They named it New Dawn, and in its center they placed a statue, a man holding a child's hand, both looking toward the stars. Karen stood before it every morning, whispering the same words. He rescued one of us, and became the father of us all. And far above, among the silent stars, a faint blue light still flickered in the void, like a heartbeat that would never fade.